What makes a movie feel real? Is it the way that the camera moves?
What?
The way characters are written?
Oh, that's apple pie and ice cream. Can you say it?
Is it the performance of an actor?
Yes.
Or does realism begin with the intention of the creator?
Obviously, we were very sympathetic about wanting people to see the life of somebody who came across the border and how it's a kind of underground life.
If you said yes to any of these questions, then your idea of realism probably aligns with the early articulations of realist film theorists Andre Bazin and Siegfried Kracauer. Realist film theory is not simply concerned with what makes a movie feel real, but rather, what constitutes realism and why does it matter? Today, these questions are all the more urgent. As artificial intelligence increasingly shapes our visual culture, influencing filmmakers, audiences, and our collective perception of reality, now is the moment to revisit our understanding of realist cinema, which sought to ground filmmaking not in spectacle, but in the search for truth. In this video, I will primarily focus on the early narrative films of Robert M. Young, an American filmmaker who between 1973 and 1982 directed and produced some of the most important depictions of Mexican lives in post-colonial United States. The centerpiece of my study will be Young's 1977 film Alambrista, which deals with the subject of Mexican immigration and labor, a subject which, even today, is often represented with a disregard for truth. Using realist film theory, I will use Robert M. Young's filmmaking to examine the technical practices that define cinematic realism, as well as elaborate on how these practices can help us protect the memory of people on the margins, especially in the face of political suppression and historical amnesia. It is obvious within the first minute of Alambrista that the film looks like a documentary.
You know, actually earlier in my career, I remember I met a very famous producer when he was actually a very important agent, and he asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, I come from documentaries, and I want to do fiction, but I want to rub fiction's face in the dirt.
The influence of documentary filmmaking aligns Alambrista well with Italian neorealism, particularly as Andre Bazin perceived the movement. According to Bazin, quote, Italian neorealism contrasts with previous forms of film realism in its stripping away of all expressionism and in particular in the total absence of the effects of montage. Neorealism tends to give back to the cinema a sense of ambiguity of reality, end quote. Bazin offers us a few elaborations on the formal elements that defined neorealism, many of which Robert M. Young uses throughout his films. Some of these elements included unsimulated lighting, the casting of non-professional actors, and the use of real locations instead of studio sets. As Bazin puts it, casting talent without performance training, quote, calls upon the actor to be before expressing. And he asserts that, quote, the natural setting is to the artificial set what the amateur actor is to the professional, end quote. In Alambrista, Robert M. Young cast amateur actors in major character roles, meanwhile offering trained actors smaller supporting roles. By limiting the roles of established actors, the film also feels more believable as an act of capturing rather than an act of orchestration. One of the trained actors includes Edward James Olmos, who at that point had not been a known film actor, but nonetheless was deeply impacted by Robert M. Young's filmmaking.
And these guys are lined up, getting ready for the shape-up. And what the shape-up was people, the growers would come in with trucks and buses, and no one had ever filmed the shape-up. They didn't want us there. He says, okay, you guys, I want you to talk to this group, Eddie. I need you to tell them, what you think about them being here.
Getting paid? You'll tell them nothing, man. Even the whore's got her money, gotta get her bread, man.
Hey, Roger, don't they know that ain't no future in picking? Now, that ain't the American way of life. Be somebody.
And I was experiencing something that had a profound effect on the way I make film now. It completely set the tone of how intention equals content. And these people became, they were the story. You had very few actors to work with, and everybody you see in the story is real.
Another one of realism's formal techniques is deep focus cinematography. Robert M. Young's use of deep focus in Alambrista is about more than just capturing picturesque backgrounds. It is about giving his subjects scale amid their situation. One of Young's visual trademarks is using deep focus to capture both the details of an environment and the facial expressions of a character in the foreground. These extreme close-ups are not something that Bazin would have likely seen as realistic, comparing extreme close-ups to Soviet montage and how they abstract a subject, shifting the value of the image from its actual meaning into a symbolic one. As Bazin puts it, quote, montage by its very nature rules out ambiguity of expression. What Bazin is defending is the act of allowing the audience to draw their own conclusions. His ultimate warning is that filmmaking, quote, has at its disposal more means of manipulating reality and of modifying it from within. But Robert M. Young does not use his camera to interpret the image for the audience.
So we're not trying to tell you anything. I personally feel that when you're trying to tell people things, it's reductive, that it's very difficult to really tell the truth. All we can do is take you into situations and position you with the filmmaking so that you can hopefully begin to understand.
Young also differs from Bazin's statements on realism by the way he stages some scenes in service of what he called the kinesthetics of the image.
And I've always had the feeling that the camera should be where I think the story is. I don't think in operational terms like doing a big shot and then doing coverage. I'm moving constantly when I'm shooting so that I try to make it a 360-degree world. I don't want it to be a proscenium stage. I try to make the film as experiential as possible. So I sort of in the way I work by now, it's a kind of unconscious thing, but I'm constantly thinking about, that's part of why I choose to stand where I stand or make the moves that I make. I do think the kinesthetics is tremendously important.
Young's staging approach falls more in line with how Siegfried Kracauer understood realism. Siegfried Kracauer claims that, quote, this recourse to staging is most certainly legitimate if the stage world is made to appear as a faithful reproduction of the real one, end quote. Robert M. Young's filmmaking is not just a faithful reproduction of reality. It's a hands-on depiction of people in the front lines of labor that genuinely takes place in the front lines of work. By using Bazin and Krakauer's writings on realism in cinema, we understand the techniques that define realist filmmaking as well as their ethical reasoning. These include deep focus, the active participation of non-professional actors, and the use of real locations, all in the service of resisting images and narratives that manipulate or interpret reality for the audience. So now that we understand what makes realism, we can ask ourselves, why does it matter? To answer that, let's consider the work itself more intensely. Alambrista is a powerful film that seeks to humanize the experience of illegal immigration rather than use the narrative to drive any nationalist or political message. Despite receiving national and international praise, Alambrista is never regarded as part of the American independent canon, nor is it necessarily embraced as part of early Chicano cinema, unlike Young's following film, The Ballad of Gregorio Cortés. This lack of recognition and visibility has thus robbed Alambrista of what Krakauer believes is the essential justification of the realist filmmaking movement. Krakauer points out that, quote, "The cinema does not simply imitate, it insists on rendering visible what is commonly drowned in inner agitation. The cinema, then, aims at transforming the agitated witness into a conscious observer." End quote. Alambrista was a watershed discovery for me in my early film viewing journey, not because it proved anything about realism as a filmmaking practice, but because it proved something far more essential about my life and culture. It proved that we existed. It proved that Mexicans in this country have existed and shaped the identity of the United States not simply as foreigners or laborers, but as active bearers of culture and as discardable witnesses of history.
$10. Yes, you do. You never write in the book. You're gonna have to pay $10. Check. Did you ask? I ain't gonna pay all that. Yeah, you are. Nah, I don't.
The filmmaking of Robert M. Young offers a sincere display of what realism can be used for in the context of our modern moment. The reality of Latinos in the U.S. continues to be suppressed to this day, and this oppression has only been emboldened by the rise of blatantly unreal images. The power of realism in cinema is thus twofold. It can preserve the existence of realities that are under threat and hiding, and it can present that existence to an audience so as to prevent historical amnesia.
Why did you do it, Moctezuma?
I did it because there were 5,000 Mexicanos killed by the Texas Rangers between 1905 and 1915. More Mexicanos were lynched and murdered by the Texas Rangers than there were African Americans in any other part of the South at that particular moment in time. That's why I did it.
In short, it can at least try to outlast the siege. That being said, depictions of truth, like people, are not guaranteed posterity. In a time when such intentions have been proven to not only exist, but prevail, it is the responsibility of audiences and emerging filmmakers to seek, celebrate, and create space for realism in the cinema. Otherwise, the spectators of our visual culture run the risk of becoming an altogether greater threat than previously possible. A culture completely detached from reality.
And so what we're trying to do is make little analogs, little correlatives, little situations that take you in so that you empathize with the characters in the situation and start learning something about them.
Who is he sending this to?
To his wife.
Thank you.